Welcome to the Get Out In It podcast, keeping our mental and physical well-being balanced by heading out into nature and doing stuff.
The activity isn't important. Walk, run, hike, bike, whatever it is, just find something you enjoy and get out in it. The point of this podcast is to show how ordinary people can achieve extraordinary levels of health and fitness.
Out here, we'll share informal, inclusive advice for anyone trying to improve their mental and physical well-being, based on our own experiences and professional knowledge from our special guests.
So let's lace up and get out in it. Oh, you didn't fucking waste any time, did you? Jesus.
I never do. And here we are. Welcome to episode 12. And what a week it has been. How are you, Maria Herring?
I'm very well. Thanks, James Bell. How are you?
I'm good. So right now, you are at the start of your second week of summer camps with kids. How is that going?
It's all right. At the moment, we are slap bang in the middle. So we've just said goodbye to our first group. And tomorrow we will be welcoming our second group. So we've got a teensy little bit of downtime before in between the two groups. So yeah, making the most of that.
rumor is in this downtime, I think I'm cooking you dinner tonight, aren't I? Isn't that the rumor?
That is not a rumor.
Oh, well, no, fact. It is fact, not rumor. Exactly that. So I know it's going to be a very different answer this week, but what have you done this week to get out in it?
Got out in it. I've done loads of stuff this week to get out in it. It's been absolutely non-stop, but in a kind of good way. I think I mentioned last time that I'd been a little bit anxious about not doing my regularly scheduled training, but that I had a bit of a mind shift and I was looking at these 2 weeks of sports camps as cross training. So that was a good thing because it's been a lot of fucking cross training. I've done paddleboarding, I've done mountain bike riding, I've been swimming. I haven't been swimming. I've been flailing about in water. That's what I've been doing. A lot of hiking, so much stuff. I've been non-stop out in it.
Well, that's good to hear. And is it nice doing something different, being out, experiencing different things?
It is actually, because where I do my camps, it's right by a lake. You know the lake. It's pretty big and it's pretty popular for water sports. Now, generally, because of my lack of swim skill, water sports aren't normally my jam, but it's really nice actually. It's quite good fun to mix it up a little bit, do something else, and just change it up a bit. Yeah, it's great. And how about you?
You went almost too high pitched for the microphone to pick up then, to be honest. But I'll just hope you didn't say anything important.
I didn't. I was just doing random squeals. You know me.
Fair enough.
So what about you? What have you been doing this week to get out in it with your hip, Mr. James Boldy Bale?
Well, I am still progressing through my rehab plan. There are ebbs and flows with progress when you're rehabbing. 1 minute you can feel like you're really making progress. And then the next, you can have just a bad day where it doesn't feel quite as good, or you try and do something and it, because ultimately when you're injured like this, your brain tends to switch off the bits of the body that are injured. And so it's all about trying to wake them back up again and get them to do what they used to do and remind them that they are there to do a role in supporting whatever you are trying to achieve. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to awaken my glutes, for example, and work
really rude.
work on my posture and work on my core. And so I'm doing a lot of what is essentially conditioning work for the moment to try and bring myself back to life. But it does mean I'm spending a bit more time outside, which is good fun.
That's nice. Yeah.
Indeed. Now, we've got quite an interesting interview this week, haven't we?
Yeah, it's kind of off-piste for us, I think, but it was well fascinating, especially for me and my normal kind of reticence for this type of activity. So, yeah, I found it quite fascinating.
Indeed. Now, we made contact with someone I've known in the industry for a long time, who is a professional triathlete, an ultra runner, and then has essentially settled on bodybuilding. Now, so as on a podcast called Get Out In It, it's quite surreal that we've been getting mainly into it because bodybuilders spend a lot of time in the gym. But we thought it was quite an interesting journey she'd been on, going from spending huge amount of time in aerobic exercise, doing running, cycling, swimming, and then to go into ultra marathons where you're spending hours and hours and hours on your feet covering huge distances. To
Which
then
is the
go,
way to live a life.
it is,
Basically,
yeah,
that's how to live.
but then to move into the world of bodybuilding, which is very, very different because you're not spending all those hours training. Your training is almost the smallest part. As long as you do it right, it's the smallest part of the process. The biggest part of the process with something like bodybuilding is getting the diet, the discipline, the intake, and the hydration correct. And I just thought it was a really interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, fascinating. And I think it's really, really nice as well, because not everybody wants to be outdoors all the time like us. So yeah, I think it was a really, really interesting guest to have.
So should we strap on some walking boots and go and see what she's got to say?
Let's see if we can drag Alice out the gym and come and have a hike and a chat with us. Come on, Alice.
Getting into it. This week, we are lucky to be joined by Alice Hector. Alice has been involved in sport her entire life. She was a professional triathlete from 2014 to 2019. She's won an Ironman 70.3 title, got bronze twice at the European Middle Distance Championships, but then fell out of love with triathlon and moved into ultra running before again making a switch to fitness modeling and bodybuilding. It's been a journey of reinvention whilst looking for and maintaining the joy. Alice, great to have you, mate. How's things?
Very well, thank you. Yes, how are you?
Very well, apart from my inability to pronounce fitness modeling, it seems. But I think I got
you got away with it.
I got away with it. I got away with it. So the first question we ask every guest that we have on is, what have you done this week to get out in it?
Get out in it.
Yeah, how have you been outside doing stuff?
Not really. Most of my training is now completely indoors.
I think for the sake of this interview, indoor training counts. You know, it's just getting out
Definitely.
of being sedentary, let's say.
Yes. So because I'm post bodybuilding show, I'm quite flexible at the moment. So I've gone with what I want to do. And I've been for some long walks. Last Friday, I think it was, I just threw in a 30-mile Thames Path challenge and walked from Richmond to Windsor just to see if I'd still got it. And it was nice. It was good. I enjoy walking. And so I just wanted to do more of it. And then this week, I've just been getting stronger in the gym, so trying to hit some personal bests and working on my deadlift and my bench and just going for much fewer reps and just trying to get strong.
What is a personal best deadlift for you right now?
This is the key, because now I do bodybuilding and I train in the gym. So many people ask me, what can I bench? What can I squat? What can I deadlift? I don't actually know, because it's quite risky to do one rep max. So that's another goal of mine on the bucket list, is to do a powerlifting competition at some stage, maybe next year or the year after, and get my scores. So I actually know.
What rep range are we talking then for a deadlift right now? What would you do?
So I'm up to 110 kilos for 3 sets of 3 was yesterday.
Nice.
That's so heavy.
Yeah.
It's not, I remember as a triathlete, I would dabble in weights and go to the gym on occasion. And I think I got up to about 80 kilos for one and went sideways. So it's nice. It's nice to get the return, and it feels it feels quite empowering when you become physically stronger. Mentally, it's a good thing as well.
Our deadlift is the same.
Oh,
it's the same weight. I'm doing 3 sets of 9 at 110 at the moment. Or maybe you need to reduce my reps a little bit. But yeah, it's good work. So you've been on quite the journey through sport, from triathlon to ultra running to fitness modeling and bodybuilding, which is kind of in the same category. What was it that drove you through those changes as you went up through the gears in different sports?
Oh, good question. So the triathlon was always on the cards, I suppose, because I grew up with my mum that swam very competitively. My dad was a competitive marathon runner, and so I'd just follow them. And then I got the opportunity to try and be an elite athlete at something, which happened to be triathlon at Loughborough Uni, because they were just starting out in the year 2001, and they wanted to build a federation from they wanted to build a squad from basically the grassroots level, and I was the right build and with the right mindset, and I got a bit of a background, never trained it properly, so I kind of got swept along with triathlon. And then we had a great group at Loughborough. It was really cool. We worked hard, we played hard, and and then the improvements came very quickly because, you know, I was new to it. But I remember when I first got suggested, when I think it was my swimming coach suggested that I did triathlon, I was like, I don't want to do that. You know, it just was like, it wasn't quite a fit. And I think now I'm older, I find it really important to listen now to those little gut instincts that are firing off. And it's okay to ignore them, because I got an opportunity, and I wouldn't have got an opportunity at another sport because that was my path. But so I'm glad I took it. But whether it was actually the perfect sport for me, well, I don't think it was. And that's why I've done what I needed to do in triathlon, and then branched out to ultra running, which is, I mean, I still love ultra running. I think if the opportunity arises physically and my sort of mental need for it comes back, it's something I'd love to tap into again, because it's brutal, but it's gentle. And the sights you see, it's just, and the people you meet as well, they're a quirky bunch, and you hear so many stories, but you hear the stories while you're competing. You buddy up with people temporarily on the courses and things. So I really like the ultra running community, and that's not done yet, possibly. But then come lockdown, it was just, I was just really burnt out anyway. It was all sort of, the ultra running was okay, and the triathlon was finishing, and then we were sort of forced not to do anything. And then I got COVID, and then I got a bit of long COVID, and so it just knocked any sort of endurance aspirations on the head for, it was only about 4.5 months, but it felt like a lifetime at the time, and you can't breathe properly, and you're used to, you know, doing these great big long sessions and being a professional endurance athlete. That was hard. But I got back to ultra, and I did a couple of competitions that went very well, actually. But I remember just running around doing my last 3-hour run after a very successful race, which was 40 miles. But my last 3-hour run it was finishing on the Grand Union Canal in the Slough Arm. So
nice.
hardly.
Sounds very exotic.
Hardly inspirational. Yeah. And I just thought, you know what? I'm not enjoying this. I'm really not enjoying the process. I enjoy the competitions. Like, I enjoyed the ultra running events on the whole, when you weren't feeling horrific. But sometimes there would be a flow and a rhythm, and it's quite that the euphoria, the endorphins would be firing off right and center. But the day-to-day training, it's like they say, you've got to enjoy the process, right?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think I'd just done too much for too long of the same thing. And then I just went to the gym one day.
And you fell in love with the gym. When you said at the start, a minute ago, you said that you had a gut feeling that triathlon, you know, maybe wasn't the right choice, but you did it anyway, and you're glad you did it. Throughout that period of time when you were a triathlete, was there an element of not enjoying it, or is that something you only noticed when you stepped away from the sport?
I think when I was younger, I was so determined I wanted to go to the Olympics. That didn't happen, but I really wanted to be a professional athlete or an elite athlete. And people told me, you know, I loved running, and I loved long distance running and sprint swimming, but people told me, you can't do both. And I thought I could do both. They told me I couldn't do both, and I was to do triathlon, because then you put them together and you just add the cycling, which I'd done a little bit of in the past and didn't particularly enjoy. And I think that's the key. It was like I was all ready to run and swim. Swimming was okay. Running I enjoyed. But cycling, I used to go out with my dad for, say, 40 minutes on the back roads of Somerset, and I just couldn't wait for the 40 minutes to be over. And I thought that was like the endurance cycling. I thought the training was about that sort of time length. And so I remember going to the first bike ride out of Loughborough, and they gave you the option of, do you want to do a 2-hour ride or a 3-hour ride? And I was like, I turned up in my PE kit and my trainers, surrounded by all these Loughborough pros, you know, it's serious sport up there. I was like, oh my God. But, you know, I did my 2 hours. And nice. It was just a challenge, and it was all new, and I had this opportunity, so I went along with it. And I think sometimes what's most important is not necessarily the sport that you do, but the squad that you have. And if that's cohesive and you're having a good time, then it works.
You're glad you had those days of endurance sport with triathlon and ultra running, and that gave you probably a very strong foundation of fitness for when you did find the gym. When you found the gym, what was that experience like, and why did you decide to pursue that quite as hard as you have?
Yeah, so we always had to go to the gym as part of triathlon training, and then my physio when I was doing the odd ultra running, you've always got niggles, so you always had to activate and switch your core on and do the fiddly little exercises. That was my experience of the gym, was just going in, just fiddling about with my various rehab type stuff,
activating your glutes, making sure all that's working,
which is actually really boring. And so I thought the gym was boring, and my partner Darren, who people probably know him on the Super League and PTO, is the photographer with the muscles, so he's always been to the gym and he loves it, and he's like, oh, you should just get stuck in. And I was like, oh yeah, but it's rubbish. But the moment I switched into actually making it my focus and having some goals and really getting stuck into the progress and having some structure to it, I mean, it came at the right time, because I'd gone from being in a very depletative, sort of destructive sport, if you like, certainly with ultra running. You whittle away to nothing in these competitions. And the very essence of bodybuilding, when you're not on the cut phase, when you're on the bulking phase, you're in calorie surplus, you can train hard, you're getting stronger, and it's only an hour. You're in the gym for an hour and you go for a 45-minute walk, and that is your training for the day. So you have this abundance of energy most of the time, and it's actually that's a very healthy phase of bodybuilding, which I really like that. And what I really like to see, because I work in a gym as well now, is the amount of women that are coming into the free weight section and taking over, because women now they're not scared of the weights, and they want to get strong and big, and and there's quite the movement behind the scenes, and it's really nice to be a part of that too.
I mean, for people who are listening, they might not understand what fitness modeling is compared to bodybuilding. So do you want to take us through that world, and what's the difference between classification fitness model and bodybuilding?
Yes, I will try. So as I've said to you earlier, James, I think the fitness federations are a bit like, say, Super League is to Ironman triathlon in terms of fitness federation versus classic bodybuilding. So you've got the classic federations, which strip away all the sort of glitz and the glamour, and it's all kind of serious stuff. And people, they really, really it's all about the performance. Mm-hmm. Super League, say, or fitness federations, they bring the color, the presentation, everyone's presented on stage, the crowd gets really, really behind you. Whereas at the classic bodybuilding show I did a few weeks ago, the crowd is there to analyze you, their coaches, their athletes. And at one point we're on stage and the whole place, it was a big theater, the whole place was just silent. And it was just like, oh my God. Like when you go out to these fitness federations and the MC's introducing you by name with a bit of a bio about your story, the crowd, they rile the crowd up as well. So it's quite intimidating backstage to hear the noise. But once you're in it, wow, what a buzz. It feels like an award ceremony. You're just there.
And a lot less sterile than the silent environment in the more sort of formal.
Yes, and you're not allowed to be creative with the bikinis, or the posing has to be just their style. And whilst and it's very efficient as well. So you're only allowed to do, say, one category. Whereas with the fitness federations, they want you to do as many categories as possible, A, because they make more money that way, but B, then you're there for the whole day and you meet all the people, all your competitors, and I've come away with some amazing sort of friendships and connections. As I alluded to earlier, it's the people that you meet that's so important. And I say, if that's not right, I didn't meet anyone at PCA 3 weeks ago, because you're there, it's super efficient, you're in, out, analysed on stage, and then you all disappear, because that you get your award or not, and you're off.
And was that fun in any way, or is it the journey to get there that's the enjoyment, not the actual day itself?
So I struggled with the last couple of weeks of that classic bodybuilding show, the PCA, and obviously you're getting into a world where supplementation is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to compete against that is, yeah, it's next level. And there's nothing to stop, say, the fitness federations, athletes taking whatever they want for that as well. But the general consensus, the criteria is a bit softer. So for bikini category, which is, I do bikini, say, fitness, which is a bit more muscly, but for their bikini category, they actually want a beach body look for the fitness federations. Whereas, yeah, I wasn't hard and dry enough for the bikini category in the classic bodybuilding because they are extreme.
I was interested to know what the difference is between competing for fitness modeling and competing for ultra or triathlon. What's the environment like? What's the atmosphere like? The comparison between those three events.
Oh, what, on the day?
Yeah.
Actually, it was quite interesting because the fitness federations, where you are encouraged to do, say, 3 categories, it takes all day. And you've got to go and get your hair and your makeup and your tan, obviously, the tan, oh my God. So you've got to get that all done before the show. Then the show starts about 12. And then the last fitness show I did finished at 11:30 at night. So you are there for a long time. And I was like, thank God I've done my endurance stuff, because it is becoming now like an endurance event. Because it is draining, you know, being on stage, the nerves as well every time, and then the adrenaline, and when you're posing, you're trying to look relaxed, but you are contorting yourself so hard.
What's the mental preparation beforehand like? Does it feel the same when you're preparing for that day and that event? Do you feel the same buzz that you used to get when you did the long course triathlon races or the ultra races?
Yeah,
is it a similar buzz?
Yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, you wake up every day and you've got one focus, and I love that, because it's when I stopped triathlon and dabbling around in ultra running, I just didn't think, you know, I'm getting older and I want to get it's always really nice to be able to improve yourself. And I was then faced with the concept of carrying on and gradually starting, possibly, not necessarily, but at 40, maybe starting to just get a bit slower at the things I'd already done. And so to have something new, which also is physical, and also when you've got a competition and you can wake up in the morning and it's just a hobby, but it gives you a whole focus, the whole challenge for that day. I say, on most days I'd fail the challenge with the bodybuilding, because I'd have a piece of chocolate or 2 or half a glass of wine. But it's not my profession anymore. So I am so determined to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And as this is what my coach, obviously, Mark, he said after the last one, where, you know, that's the serious federations in terms of, you know, you can pro series to go and win, and it's all really legit and respected by the proper athletes. And he's like, yeah, so, you know, he wanted to turn the screw that bit harder. He's like, well, that last 2 weeks diet you did, if you just doubled the time that we did that for, you'd be there. And I was like, Mark, no. I've done my time. Sacrificing everything, and I was prepared to do 2 weeks. That was just about manageable, but 4 weeks, no, I'm not. It's like I've learned to say no quite recently, and so now I say it all the time. But I'm not prepared, after all the work I've done to sort of build my ego back and get strong and feel good about myself, to then be asked to go back into that realm of high performance again, where you're sacrificing your whole life, or not sacrificing, but putting your life on hold, I would say, for that focus. Yeah, I'm not prepared to do that anymore. So I think I've done well without pushing to the limit and above it. And I intend now to keep it that way. And if it can't be done in a fun and positive manner, I'm not prepared to push the boundaries.
I think that sounds super healthy. I love that.
All these sports are very extreme sports. Yeah, and it's just because I've got that experience, that I know what I'm getting myself into, and how you can be swept along with something that feels like, yeah, it's fun and it's empowering and it's colourful at first, but then the moment you start getting better and your coach thinks you've got potential, then it's in his interest to get that potential out, because it's beneficial for him as well as me. And he lives and breathes bodybuilding. Luckily, we've got a very, very good relationship, and he gets that I just don't need that in my life. You know, I've done that. So I'm always asking, is this adding to my life today or not? And if it's not, which it wasn't for the last 2 weeks before the competition, you can do that for a time. That's fine if the reward is worth it. But it's quite, I'm just questioning a lot now.
I think with a lot of people who aren't at the very, very top of whatever sporting game they're playing, there does come a point where you have to decide, when it comes to enjoying my life to the maximum, is doing that extra 10, 20, 30% of my sport really going to bring me that much more enjoyment when I might be a little bit faster on race day or a little bit leaner come competition day?
Yeah, there's so much I could say about that, because I wrote a post recently about my daily optimal performance is always going to be suboptimal, because I will do 90% correct and then I'll have 10% where I relax a bit. And so you could see every day I'm doing like mini fails here and there with the chocolate or this. It's never the exercise, it's never the training's never a problem. But you know, I wasn't hitting the exact targets every time because the diet is so plain. Then you're cutting carbs out in the evening, which is so hard. But I wouldn't beat myself up about it. Whereas some people, if they miss that, you know, they're new to sport, they've never had the experience before, and they do what their coach says. And they're also hungrier for it, literally, because this is their moment. They found a sport that they can do well at, and they've got a plan, and they're doing something for them. And yeah, I said to Mark, look, I'm up against girls, just as I was in triathlon, that are prepared to do anything for this sport, but I'm not that invested. I don't believe in it enough. It's fun, and I'll take the good points. But yeah, once you start taking things a bit seriously and the fun disappears bit by bit, you can get quite trapped from what started out as a hobby.
You start losing fun elsewhere in your life as well.
Absolutely.
So it's a double-edged sword, really, because you're losing the fun of what you're doing, but you're also missing out on opportunities you could have with the time that you could spend doing something else, as opposed to...
That was my coach Mark's quote, actually. He was like, yes, we just need to take out life's little luxuries a bit sooner next time. I was like, no. I'm keeping those. I don't mind if I get on stage and I look strong and athletic, and I'm always going to get on stage pretty lean, but I don't really want to look dry and hard and vascular. You know, it's not something I aspire to.
It doesn't
and to
sound
be honest,
very nice.
No. And to be honest, you know, a lot of the bodybuilders, you go out the front of the stadium or the theatre or whatever it is, and they're all chain smoking and they look really gaunt, some of them. And it's like, yeah, there's a limit for me. It's not healthy.
I've never done fitness modeling, which is remarkable, I know, to look at me. But my assumption is you do a lot of strength work, and there is then a huge amount of focus on diet and nutrition and hydration as well. What's that balance like for you? I mean, you've already implied that you find the actual training element easier than you do the diet element. How do you balance those two things?
Well, aside from the last 2 weeks, you'd lose weight. You do your cut phase for anywhere between 12 and 20 weeks. So mine was 12 weeks, because I don't get really bulky in the off season. I'm just because I think I've done my sport all my life. And for those first, say, the 10 weeks, it just gradually builds. So you don't go from eating what you like in the bulking season to then going straight into this horrible diet. The screw gets turned bit by bit.
Yeah. And so you gradually increase the calorie deficit as you go.
Yeah.
And when you say eating what you like, when you're bulking, are you eating what you like, or is it a controlled, just slightly over your calorie allowance?
I'm eating what I like because I know how to eat well. As an elite athlete in the past, it's easy to eat healthy and abundantly. And
so you're eating what you like. That's not a blanket term for just like if you're in a bulking phase, you can eat what you want.
Yes, I think
chocolate.
People misunderstand, and that's when they leave themselves far more work to do in their cut, because they proper bulk, they dirty bulk. That's the phrase.
Dirty bulk. That's the phrase, isn't it? Yeah.
Quote of the week.
Christmas. I dirty bulk over Christmas every year.
I love the phrases I come up with. Yeah. It all sounds very performance-based, doesn't it? It just means binging. Yeah, so for the most part, yeah, it's actually fine. And Mark, he doesn't cut carbs too early. When you diet, what I've realized is, like, to lose weight, you can never be hungry. So you're eating 5 or 6 small meals a day. They're very plain, they're very boring, but if you're not actually hungry, it takes out the cravings. And so you're not hyperglycemic or anything where it's just out of control. And I think if you were to try and do this plain, very healthy kind of diet, and then throw in sort of 10 hours a week of triathlon training, you'd have absolutely no hope, because your metabolism's just like on fire. So you need to fuel and fuel and fuel. And that's where I struggled as a triathlete, certainly at the beginning when I was younger. I had weight to lose, because I couldn't stop eating. And it was a problem to control my diet. And I thought, I'd be the last person that would be able to. But given if you set it up right, and that's where a good coach comes in. Because I think I've had quite a few comments, as I say, from triathletes saying, I get what you're doing, and I like what you're doing, and I'd love a go to build muscle, but God, I couldn't do the diet. And it's like, absolutely you could, because triathletes are probably the most determined bunch of people I've ever met. And you just channel that focus in a slightly different way and set up your environment so that you're not craving carbs all the time. And actually, if you set it up, it can be done pretty easily. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the difference in terms of feel and demands on your body between the two sports? I mean, with endurance sport, you're training a huge amount. You're training 20, 30 hours a week. So you're tired all the time. You always got inflammation. You're, like you said at the start, you don't have that abundance of energy. You're always in a sort of energy deficit. The demands on your body when you're training for bodybuilding, fitness modeling, like you say, the time spent in the gym is much shorter, and you notice that abundance of energy. But what is the difference in terms of inflammation? When do you feel sore? How long do you feel sore for? How tired are you?
I've noticed that, you get, when I do a really heavy session, which is most days, to be honest, I like to push it because I've only got my 1 hour, so I'll make it count. On the whole, my sleep is a lot better than it was when I was swim, bike, running. It's much more restful, I think, because I'm not as wired as I was. Mm-hmm. I don't get home and just, you're so tired sometimes with the cardiovascular effort, and everything's, as you say, just inflamed, especially running, and you've been out on the bike for 6 hours. It's very hard to switch off. I always struggled with sleep when I was a triathlete, always. And it got me into some sort of quite hard, some hard situations when you're expected to be up at 5 a.m. For your swim squad, but you haven't really slept that night because you haven't switched off, but you're knackered. So I always struggled with that part. Whereas with the weight training, yes, it's much more, I feel healthy, I feel energized after a session, and then sometimes I feel sleepy, and then the sleep at night is much more restful because I haven't got that, I don't know what it is, the massive levels of oxygenation or free radicals or something. So that's a big difference.
So how many times do you go to the gym a week? Is it an everyday thing?
Yes, but my coach says go 5 times. I then pushed it to 6 times, and then I maybe do 7. But he kind of left me to it because he knows my background, and I am used to doing something every day, and I actually feel worse if I don't. But yes, to build the ideal amount of muscle, like, you need a ton of recovery. I know I'm not doing that 100% well. I'm overtraining slightly, because if I did less, if I did 5 times a week, that would probably be better, to be honest. That's the sort of standard formula. But when I first met Mark, I was like, so when can I start coming twice a day? When does that start? Because I'm used to 2 or 3 sessions a day, and they're only an hour. So he's like, what? Shut up. you absolute weirdo.
I mean, is that something you're preconditioned to think because of all the training you've done?
Absolutely.
Or do you ever actually miss that big day out? Like, if you think about it, do you really want that?
But
do you ever? Do you ever miss that?
Absolutely.
Sort of,
That's why I went for I did a couple of long walks after
Yeah.
the show, because I needed the fresh air, and I just wanted, I say, running at sort of 10 kilos plus weight on top of where you were. It's okay, actually. It's not as bad as I thought, but it doesn't have the same flow and rhythm that it once had. So I don't mind a bit of running, but it's a bit of a hoof. So walking, yeah, it's nice. And so I just wanted a day out twice. I did 2 long walks. It was quite interesting to sort of dip back in. I know I still can. One was just over a marathon, and then the other one was 30 miles. So I was out for 7, 8, 9 hours. And it was nice to know the body still does that. There's a muscle memory there. It's cool, because I haven't touched that for 2 years. But it was a reminder that, yeah, whilst I'm enjoying this, I'm not quite ready to go all in again, because that you're always, again, as I'm always questioning, like, what do I want to do next? Is this adding to my life? Am I, do I want to continue? And it was nice to just dip in and say, yes, that's what I enjoy sometimes, but not all the time. Not yet.
No, it sounds like you've moved from a phase of being a pro athlete for a long period of time where you were doing it because it was your job, and now you're really hunting the joy and what you enjoy in life, and you're analyzing that and chasing that down.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. I mean, I think when you make your hobby or passion your job, it's it's easy for the enjoyment to you it doesn't matter if you're enjoying it or not, as long as you deliver. It doesn't, and you're trying as hard as you can to push the boundaries to get that one step higher on the podium, or enjoyment is secondary, whereas now for me it's the absolute that's the absolute goal.
So I have a question about training. So I'm a runner, and in order to kind of augment my running, I'm supposed to do strength training during the week, to help with my running. As a bodybuilder and fitness model, do you have to do other things outside of the gym to augment your training, or is it purely just weights and gym stuff?
Yeah, so it's just really the bulk of it is time under tension weight training. So it's relatively high volume, quite low weight for multiple sets. So you're spending a lot of time with the muscle contracted, basically till muscle. Powerlifters say, which is kind of where I'm interested in that sort of side of things as well. They'll do 3 to 5 reps and lots of rest, and it's just very, very explosive, and that's their sets. It takes an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes they're in the gym for. But it's just so for bodybuilding it's time under tension. We go for a walk to do our cardio, which is 45 minutes to an hour, and then I did try some sprinting last year, which actually worked quite well, I think. Got me quite ripped, because as my coach says, you look at 400-meter runners, 200-meter runners, that's probably about a similar body shape as you're going to get with another sport compared to bodybuilding, because it's high intensity. You're not wasting muscle. You're not, because that's the trouble with doing endurance training. Any muscle, you've got no hope of building muscle, because you're eating into that muscle and those energy reserves the moment you go over for, say, 45 minutes.
This is something I'm trying to tell Maria all the time, which is she's complaining at me that the sessions I set, she's not building muscle, and I'm saying that's just there to support your running, support your ultra running. You're not going to get much bigger.
No.
If you want to get bigger, we have to totally change your training.
That's it. Yes,
running goes, diet goes up. And like you say, the difference between powerlifters, they just want to get the weight in the air.
Yeah.
They want to lift as much as they can. Whereas a bodybuilder, time under tension, so that they're looking to build the muscle rather than move the weight.
Yeah.
The weight to a bodybuilder is much less important, I assume.
That's it. Yeah.
As opposed to the sculpting of the body.
But it's quite interesting. I think it was Eddie Hall, and they put him against one of these champion bodybuilders. It was just a photo collage, and they asked loads of people, like, who do you think's the strongest out of the bodybuilder? And Eddie Hall, who wasn't at the time in any sort of shape at all, he was just a massive. Yeah,
he's a big boy, isn't he?
Yeah, and obviously they all picked the bodybuilder as being the strongest because the bodybuilder looked the strongest. But actually, that's not necessarily that muscle isn't the most useful. It just looks the part.
Indeed. And Eddie's actually on a mission at the
Yes, he
moment to
is.
try and get into bodybuilding, isn't he? But he's got a substantial amount of cutting to do, I think, before he gets there.
It's amazing what you can do though. And I'm very surprised, because I think that's where I got a bit stuck before with my mindset. Was you go to the gym and it was like, well, I'm doing all this cardio and all this training and I'm not building any muscle. But actually I didn't realize that to build muscle, yes, you have to be in a calorie surplus. Absolutely, there's no way around it. The moment you start doing endurance sports, you're hardly ever in a calorie surplus. And if you are, you're always playing catch up with that. So you're eating into the muscle as you do these long sessions. Yeah. And so I didn't realize how quickly it's amazing how quickly my body can change shape now, because it was so consistent before with the endurance. I was just me, but now it's bulking, it's cutting. 3 weeks out from the last show I did, I look completely different, like, because that's the show day is extreme. You're doing all sorts of water manipulation and the diet and the taking salt out, so it's all an illusion what you see on the stage. So by the time the next day or two rolls around, everyone's looking pretty much normal-ish again. And then the control you have over your body shape it's nice to know I can do that.
Is it a place where you feel like you can have a good relationship with your body because you know it that well?
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
I don't know how I'm trying to phrase this question, but when you were a triathlete and you were very consistent, was it easier to have a good relationship with your body than it is now? Or is it easier now because you know what it can and can't do so well?
Yeah, I think definitely part of the going to the gym at the beginning was straight away. Within about 2 weeks, I was holding myself better. My posture was good. My confidence had sort of started to grow, and I didn't quite know why, but I think it was to do with, it's like, what do they say? Take up space. And when you grow muscle, you're literally filling your own space. And so it's been very good for my confidence and psyche to be doing this sport. So whilst the stage is it can be seen, I think, from an outsider point of view, certainly as kind of quite objectifying. What was going on behind the scenes, which I didn't even think of when I started dabbling into this new sport, is actually a sort of transformation in self-confidence, really. And that's something I don't want to lose track of, like that feeling at the beginning when I was starting to actually make significant changes to my body in a very, it was very, I don't want to overuse the phrase, but empowering manner. And I think any triathlete or any pro athlete, I would say, when you retire, especially if you're endurance sport, you're quite, you can feel a bit lost, I think. And I go into the gym for a year, see what happens, because it's I think muscles and strength, and it just builds from within as well. It's done wonders for my self-confidence.
This is interesting because I do have I'm quite open about my hate relationship with strength training, and like I said, I do it because I know it's good for my running. But if I can skive in the week, I will skive off those sessions, because I think it's because I love running so much because I'm outdoors, and I can do a different run every day. Everything changes, nothing's ever the same. But I find that with strength, it's just like the same thing over and over and over and over again. So how can I get past that? How can I learn to love strength training like you do?
I don't know, because when what you just said, I totally get, because I was exactly the same. I think when you're tired and you're doing all this endurance sport, the last thing you want to go, when it's not your key focus, it's the add-on, isn't it? And as much as the pro triathletes want, they post sometimes about making it their focus, the strength training, and they're kind of getting into the gym, they'd much rather be outdoors, swim, bike, running. That's why you do what you do. So I don't have the answer unless, because I understand where you're coming from, unless I was to suggest you take a year and you just go to the gym and make it your number one focus, and you get a proper plan from a coach to grow muscle, and then suddenly it becomes interesting, because you log the strength. the improvements, and you've got goals, you've got mini goals firing off every time you hit a machine or an exercise.
I mean, right now your focus is the running, and so you're getting those goals through the running. You're achieving different distances. You're getting faster. You're getting safer. You're getting more stable. So that's where your goals are coming. The weightlifting is there to support that. So you're not going to find, other than a slight increase in weights that you're lifting every now and again, you don't find those stepping stones.
No.
But I think, like you say, what you're saying is really interesting. That if you want to fall in love with the gym, make it your focus for a period of time. Find those improvements, learn to love those improvements, and then maybe go back to some endurance.
And that's where I sort of say, with me, I just love competition. So whilst the stage isn't like, it's a bit like triathlon, it's not like 100% me, but I don't think anything is really. So I'll just embrace it. I always need an end goal. So it makes the training very, very, it's enjoyable, because I know what I'm training for. So that's why I'd already picked my competition before I'd even started training in the gym. I'd already picked, I'm going to do Miami Pro in 7 months' time. And I'd gone to the bikini designer as well, because they were so glittery and pretty. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. But yeah, it's just important. Again, and then when we started stripping back to go to the classic bodybuilding show, and it's like, you're not allowed the glittery, glitzy, creative bikinis. And it's like, well, that is the first thing I looked at when I started this sport. And now we're taking it away, which sounds good, because I get the performance element and just stripping it back and making it as competitive and just as no nonsense as possible. But I started it because I liked all the diamonds.
Which is hilarious, because that's like a massive, like almost like a juxtaposition with this big beefy person but the beautiful shiny bikini. It's like a weird dichotomy. I love that.
It's a strange sport, but I think they're all strange sports. But triathlon, ultra running, bodybuilding, they're just weird.
So let's get into the details of what it's like to train for a sport like that. What's a regular session like for you when you get to the gym? What does take us through a session?
So you break it up into body parts, basically. So I've got legs twice a week, and then chest and arms once a week, and back and shoulders twice a week, because shoulders are important. What you're trying to do is create the biggest X shape you can. So you want big wide shoulders, the illusion of a tiny waist, which you get by building your lats. And the wider you are up here, then the angle is that much stronger into your waist. And then you want big glutes, big quads, which is all the rage anyway for women these days, which is great. I love that, because it used to be about being stick thin, didn't it? The 90s era. It's all broken down into body parts. And I don't have anything too set in stone, because what I don't want to do is get to the gym and then someone's on the machine that I need to be on for 20 minutes and I'm getting anxious waiting. So you just adapt. So you do say maybe 5 or 6 exercises up for your back, 3 or 4 sets, 12 to 15 reps, and you might superset it or drop set it. So you're just drop sets when you go to failure, and then you drop the weight slightly, and then you go again. So you're getting a few more reps after failure. And then superset, if you're doing, say, triceps, whilst your triceps are resting, you can do your biceps. And so it's being efficient and actually keeping your heart rate up a bit, which bodybuilders are quite good at resting, over resting. And so Mark, my coach, likes to be quite dynamic, and a lot of his personal training sessions for his competitive athletes are actually just 30 minutes long, because he's just supersetting and drop setting the whole time. And so you don't actually have an awful lot of rest. So it's quite intense.
What's your favorite body part to train? Which day is your favorite day?
I like legs, because it's the most savage.
You're a triathlete, isn't it? Yeah.
It
That's
hurts
why
the most.
Everybody says they hate legs day apart from me. And like endurance athletes, we're all just like, oh, I love legs day. It's the bit of my body that actually works.
Yeah, I've got to be ready for that. And I like the deadlifts at the moment. I've got to not overdo them. But yeah, that raw sort of power and the compound moves, I quite like them. And shoulders as well. I like doing shoulders because they burn quite well. And then that's a key area for sort of bikini bodybuilders. All bodybuilders, I think, need to have good shoulder caps.
Do Do you, because it's all about building the muscle and make it rather than stability? Do you bother with much stability work, like single leg work or anything like that? Anything that would be more conditioning work for the endurance athletes?
Not really. Obviously, I've got to be aware of good form all the time. Do the warm ups. That is the same with any sport. So occasionally I'll throw in some one-legged stuff, but say my coach Mark, he's very traditional, and he's like, no one squats anymore. They're all after these, the next new thing. So he'd rather just stick to the basics. And why?
It sounds
why
like
do?
me.
Yeah,
I like this guy.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
He's no nonsense, but
Deadlift, squat, hip thrust, calf raise, go home.
Yeah.
I do love a squat.
Yeah.
I will say that's my favorite exercise of all time.
Very, very good for you if it's done correctly.
Yeah.
Does a lot. But yeah, people are always looking for, in Mark's opinion, they're always looking for sort of shortcuts and the next big sensationalist thing that no one's ever thought of, and people often forget the basics, which is just good, solid, repetitive kind of. It can be a little repetitive and boring, but that's the nature of consistency, isn't it?
What does strength training do for the body? Like as a not necessarily as a pro bodybuilder like you, but for a normal person who's starting to add strength training into their routine, what does that do for our bodies?
In terms of just general,
in terms of health and fitness, yeah. So not. I mean, obviously, physically we can see the muscles get bigger, but in terms of general health and well-being, what does strength training do for us?
I did overlook how important it was, especially I think as you get slightly older. Obviously muscle mass you need to work at to keep, when we start losing it, don't we? So you can easily maintain it if you train it, and that's important. But yeah, for me it's just the way it makes me feel. I don't have the science behind like what it actually does for you, but it makes me look good and feel good, and none of my clothes fit anymore. But it's not because
but in a good way.
It's not. It's funny, I was trying to put my clothes on, like a shirt, the other day, and couldn't even get.
I was like, oh no, my guns are too big.
I say any sport can be rewarding. I think people, if they do work on themselves and you can see visible differences, and you start getting that tone, and you feel strong, it does. It does a lot for your mindset. I think I like the movement, as I say, that's coming along with the women getting stuck in and wanting to grow. We get a lot of customers saying they want to grow, and I really like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you think you're in this for the long haul now, or can you see a return to other forms of sport at some point?
So I think the novelty will wear off quite quickly. Like, it's been a really fun sort of experience, but to sort of progress in the sport, then the screws start having to be tightened, and I say then the diet gets harder and harder and harder, and the training is fine always, but it's the diet. And in that last 2 weeks before the show, I was very aware I'm not susceptible to eating disorder, but if you were, you'd be on a very slippery slope. And a lot of the girls, I don't know about the boys so much because just got to know the girls as I've competed. A lot of them really struggle post-show. They binge, and they really struggle with their own identity, and they're all out of whack, and their periods have stopped. That's more normal than in endurance sport. And so to keep going, I think I'll always be maybe 6 weeks away from a show. I'd like to be able to dip in to a cut when I'm ready. But there's other things to do. I do want to do this powerlifting competition at some stage just to get my numbers so I know what they are. I'm not built for powerlifting, but who cares? It's like you can do anything as an amateur, and there's no reason you have to just do one thing. So I also do want to explore the speed I've got on the track, the 200 meters, the 400 meters, because I just want to do it all. And actually, so I can do a bit of powerlifting, I can do a bit of 400 meter running, and then maybe there's a 45-year-old age group for the fitness federations, and it might be a case of waiting till then to go again, and being at the bottom of the age group's always an advantage. But I always need something, I think, and I think a lot of people listening, and you guys will will understand that whilst we've got that sort of physical ability, it's the burning desire to sort of use it and make the most of what we've got. So I've just got to be careful that I don't make any rash decisions, because as you can see, I've got loads of ideas all the time. And it's like one step at a time. But some of these sports do complement each other. And in theory, you could do a couple alongside each other. So it's trying to marry them up. Obviously, I cannot do ultra running or triathlon. Not that I want to do triathlon, but I cannot do ultra running and with bodybuilding. That would not work. Just burning the muscle tissue and getting way too depleted.
Yeah.
But sprinting and bodybuilding would work. Amateur sort of powerlifting, bodybuilding would work, and powerlifting 400 meters type training would also tie in quite well. So yeah, we'll see what happens next. I'm just taking my time and exploring at the moment.
So for somebody who's like literally crushed it in multiple sports her entire life, what would you say to our listeners out there who are just starting with health and fitness, or maybe they're coming back to it after taking hiatus? What kind of advice would you give them into going into sports?
I think, follow your gut. If something you're not going to enjoy every second of your sport, but I think if you've got a goal, find a big fat goal.
Big fat goal.
Yeah. And find it about, maybe pick an event, maybe a year from now, that's kind of scares you into action. So, because the day-to-day training, yes, but sometimes it's fine. I think sometimes motivation, it's always going to lack. And if you're scared into action slightly because you've got something that's slightly too big for you, that's really useful. And then you've got something to work towards that's tangible. And that's how I operate anyway. I love to compete and just have that focus.
It's a common theme we're
really
having,
is.
I guess, at the moment is choose a goal that scares you slightly, and it will make you move.
Yeah, but obviously, I say the most important thing is your day-to-day, the process as well. So I think even if you're not sure, you're not the best at a certain sport, if this is what I'm looking for with the 400 meters and things, if I can find a squad that I enjoy going to in my spare time, because it's always in the evening, so you've got not spending my spare time in the winter standing there on my own in a cold dark track waiting for 10 minutes in between reps. I'm not doing it. But if there is a squad of adults that we can socialize and it makes it kind of fun, then absolutely I will do it. But it's what's available to you. And so if there is a good group, say at my gym, I've got some powerlifting guys, and then naturally they're my best friends at the gym, so I've got that affiliation there straight away. So it's finding what's available to you, finding something that's really positive, that lifts you but is hard, that's going to challenge you, and then going with it. Even if it's not something you're particularly good at, it doesn't matter. If you're enjoying it and you've got a supportive squad, you're only going to get better, especially if you're new to something. So you never know.
Amazing.
I think what I really love about this chat, and what I'm going to take away from it, is your analysis of whether you're enjoying something or not, or whether it's bringing something to your life. Because that, I think, is one of the most important things that anyone listening to this can take away. It's don't get too trapped or typecast into what you think you need to be. Think about what you think you need to be is bringing to you, and whether it's bringing joy to your life, and try and amplify those elements of it rather than chase the bits that aren't.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be quite tricky to work that out, because obviously, if you did everything that you enjoyed and everything that made you happy, we'd all just be sitting there doing nothing, because the body naturally wants to be lazy. And so training hard for something, and it's tough. So it's not always sunshine and rainbows. You've got to put yourself out there, but there is a contentment that comes with discipline, and that's where you sort of find yourself. You find things out about yourself by pushing yourself, and that ultimately leads to happiness. It's adding to my life. So it might, you might feel like you're sacrificing at the time, but if you can analyze it over the course of a few days later, and you see where your progress is coming in, it's a process. So and it's not always just happy happy, but it ultimately leads to that sort of self-transcendence, I guess.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Self-transcendence. Yeah, so my main quotes from this are dirty bulk,
Go for it.
big fat goal, and transcendence. There we go. That's my top 3 picks.
Yeah.
There you go. Now, this is the most important bit of the entire interview that we do with every guest who comes on every week. And that is, we need you to pick a song to add to the Get Out On It playlist on Spotify.
Ooh.
What do you like to train to?
Oh, now we're talking. Hang on, I'm going to bring it up because I don't know its name, but I've just added it to my Summer 23. Right, Rocket by Sub Focus.
Rocket
good
by
for deadlifting too.
Focus.
Okay. Well, I don't think I've ever heard of it. Subfocus is the group name, the band
I think
name.
so. I don't
Yeah.
really know
Oh,
much about
rock,
it.
rock it, as in
Yes.
2 words.
Oh,
rock
rock
it.
it.
I
Oh,
thought
I was
it was
thinking of-
rocket, as in
Yeah.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But,
So go
okay.
to the gym,
Rock it.
go to the gym and do your little exercises to Rock It by Sub Focus, and you'll have a great
Okay.
time. You'll
Right,
be buzzing.
Cool.
Maybe that will help me with my
Exactly.
with my strength training
I didn't
session.
mention that. Yes, I've got these massive headphones. When I go to the gym, it's like proper party in my head.
Nice. Okay.
Nice.
Noted.
Well, what we'll do is add that to the playlist so everybody can hear it. And if anybody wants to find out more about you, where can they find you online to come and have a look at some of your awesome fitness modeling and bodybuilding pictures that I had a good scroll through the other day?
So I think Instagram's where I'm most active. It's Alice Hector 82, I believe. Yes. And then you can just look me up, Alice Hector, on Facebook. I post a bit on there, and that's about it, really. I'm not on too many channels. Getting on a bit, certain age. I don't know what Snapchat is. But yeah.
You're not a TikToker then? You don't TikTok?
I've dabbled, but yeah,
I've
it
dabbled.
wasn't for me.
I didn't inhale.
You've got to try everything, haven't you?
Okie doke. Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been absolutely fascinating. I love that conversation.
Amazing
It was great.
conversation. Thank you so much. The debrief.
The emphasis was correct, I feel.
Okay.
So that was great. That was an interesting little bimble through her journey from triathlon to ultras to bodybuilding. I really enjoy the company of Alice Hector. I think she's great fun. And I was fascinated by ultimately where she's ended up and why she's ended up there. What do you think?
Okay. I can't get my head around it because it's all indoors. Alice is a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun talking to her, and it was fascinating for me to speak to somebody who is so into gym and strength training because it's so far outside of my range of interests that I was I was enthralled the whole time. But yeah, I still can't get my head around it. I would much rather, I don't understand why she went from ultra to gym. It doesn't compute for me.
Well, no, but that's the point, isn't it? And almost I think the biggest takeaway I've got from that interview is the way that she has transformed her mindset from that of a professional athlete, where this is what I do and there's a reason for doing it because I want to achieve what I want to achieve and I want to get where I want to go. And now her focus is very much on, I want to do things that the achievement is making me happy and me enjoying it. So she's really been introspective and gone, what is it that brings me joy in life? And what actions can I do to bring that to myself? And she's constantly seems to be analyzing and critiquing whether that is the case. And I love that. I really do. I think that's a fantastic outlook and a way to look at sport and exercise and, the way you spend your time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a brilliant message for everybody, find something that brings you joy, find something that makes you happy. Like if running isn't your jam, try something else. And if that something else isn't your jam, go back to running. You'll end up loving it. But also, it is an important message. Find something that you enjoy. And as soon as it stops being a pleasure for you, change it up. You don't have to stick with one thing your whole entire life. And just because I don't understand why Alice chose to go from outdoor stuff to indoor stuff, who gives a fuck? Do you know what I mean? She's happy, and that's the main takeaway, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not find something you enjoy and only do it if you enjoy it. It's not an excuse to cut corners, you know. If sometimes you've got to get used to being uncomfortable in order to improve it. But I think it's the bigger picture rather than the moments.
Yeah, of
If
course.
the moments, sometimes you can be uncomfortable and you can think, God, why am I doing this? But afterwards, in the evening or the days after or the weeks after, or when you get to that event that you do, if then you still feel like the journey has been worth it and you thoroughly enjoy it and you want to be there and it brings you just joy, then you know that whether that's true or not.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, if you're just grinding for the sake of grinding, then maybe it's time to go and find that joy somewhere else, like Alice has.
Have a rethink. But one of the things that I did really enjoy listening to, I feel like we said joy way too many times in this debrief.
It's just a word. It's just
it's
a sound
just a
now.
word. It's just a noise. One of the things I did appreciate when Alice was talking about what strength and strength training did for her was the sense of empowerment that she got from it. The fact that she could see herself getting physically stronger. She could see her body changing, and it gave her like this huge boost of confidence and empowerment, which she wasn't really getting from her endurance activities. So that's also an interesting thing, not just for women listeners, but for everyone who's listening. If you feel that you want to improve your confidence or get some empowerment, then maybe give strength training a try.
And she made the point that just because she was doing strength training and building muscle, it didn't mean that she had to let go of her interpretation of her femininity. Oh
yeah, like there's no way that you wouldn't say that Alice isn't feminine, like not even a little bit. No. I love that juxtaposition that she's ripped to fuck and can lift really, really heavy weights, but she's also super giggly and loves a sparkly bikini. I love that dichotomy. It was brilliant. I love it.
So now we're done with that. How about we go and grab a coffee?
Let's get a coffee. Gagging for it, mate. The weekly roast. Is that it?
Well, Maria Herring, it's your round, I think, and it's been a while between drinks, so it better be a good one.
I'm going to take you back into Lyon because there is a great So I've gone a little bit. The whole episode is about going off piste. This week, I haven't chosen a coffee. I've chosen a cafe.
Okay, better be a good one.
It is a good one. And
have you taken me there?
You haven't been to this one yet.
Why not?
Because we've never gone past it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's in the center of Lyon, and I'm taking you there now. So wind your fucking neck in. So this cafe is right in the middle of Lyon. It's called Slake, which I think is a great name for a cafe because it's a lot of fun to say, and also it has obvious meaning. Anyway, so it's called Slake. I love this cafe because it's one of the few cafes in Lyon that actually serves oat milk.
It's as opposed to Starbucks.
As opposed to, and also as opposed to all other coffees in France that are like vegetable-based milk. Fuck off. Do you know what I mean? It's like the 21st century France. Buck your ideas up a little bit. Anyway, so this is one of the few cafes in France, in Lyon, that does actually have oat milk. And their coffees are delicious. And also they get all of their beans. They source all of their beans from local roasteries, and Café Moxa is one of the local roasteries from which they source their beans. Okay, so this is why it's such a good coffee in here.
So we haven't got a specific coffee of choice this week. We've got a venue of choice. Which
of choice.
If anyone is in the locality of Lyon or the Rhône-Alpes, they should check it out. What's it called again?
It's called Slake.
Slake.
With a K, as in slake your thirst. But they also do food and patisseries and other delicious bits and bobs. So if you're in Lyon for a shopping trip and you need a little pick-me-up, pop on over to Slake. They'll sort you right out. The baristas in there are really, really friendly, and they'll talk to you for fucking ages about the types of coffee that they have. It's a really lovely place.
Do they do vegan cakes?
I mean, for now, let's just be content that we can get an oat milk latte. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
All right, baby steps, France. Baby steps indeed.
But
So,
I'll put a link to that cafe in the show notes. And they do also have an English version of their website, so that's quite cool.
well, there you go. Go and check it out and give them some love and tell them we sent you. Always good when you tell them we sent you.
Yeah, because they know exactly who we are.
Everybody knows who we are. So, let's take a moment to be honest, shall we?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's be honest. So before your summer camp started, you were having quite anxious thoughts about what the training was going to do, what your brain was going to do when you weren't able to do your normal structured training. And you had a moment of epiphany about how you were going to be using the summer camps as cross training. And you were going to be fitting in a bit of training if you fancied it for a bit of fun, if the fun came to you. Have you achieved this thing, or are you having a meltdown?
I am not having a meltdown. No. It's going really well. There's not enough time to have a meltdown. Turns out when you've got 12 kids under 12 to look after, puts things into perspective for you. But anyway, no, I've been very active. Like I haven't felt at all this week that I haven't been doing anything. It's been non-stop from early in the morning until quite late in the evening. And I've missed running because I haven't been able to get any solid runs in.
Still running anywhere. Not an early morning jaunt or a late afternoon. Maybe tonight, before I cook you dinner on this Saturday evening, we'll go for a quick run together.
Yeah, I mean, in between kids might be the time to squeeze a run in, but to be honest, there's just not enough time to do it because it turns out, right? I mean, I'm not a mum. I've never had kids. I'm not a mother. I've never had kids, which, good for me. And it turns out that small children wake up hella early in the morning. So I would have to be getting up at like 4:30 to go for an early morning run. And when I'm going to bed around 11, 12 o'clock the night before, it's just not possible. It's just not possible. It wouldn't be fun.
There you go. I could have told you that.
Yeah.
You needed insight into whether kids wake up early. I could have told you.
I mean, you would have thought I would remember from last year, but I think sometimes I block shit out.
PTSD, eh?
Yeah. Anyway, enough about me. You, be honest.
Yeah, I mean, last episode I was being very, very positive about my rehab. I think that was when I just started and things were starting to really, you feel that improvement very quickly. It doesn't take long for it to bed in, and then you start to think, there are moments where you have to believe in the process more than the process is believing in you at that moment.
Okay.
Because you can feel it can go up and down.
Right.
So I'm just having to believe in the eventual outcome right now, as opposed to the day-to-day improvement. I am going through the motions. I'm doing the work, and I think I am seeing improvement. When I went for my first rehabilitation run this week, I felt very different to how I did the week before. It was more of a rehabilitation waddle. But I think that's just the way it goes sometimes, and I will keep progressing. I think at some point I will see a big upswing in form.
Do you think sometimes you get in your own way, like where you are in your headspace? Because I know last week had been such a positive week for you, and I know that this week you weren't feeling quite as upbeat as you were last week. Do you think sometimes your own head gets in the way of your body?
Yeah, possibly. When I go and see my physio, they always talk me back down.
That's
because
good.
They'll remind me of why different bits of me hurt, why there is a reason behind why sometimes if you go in a certain direction it doesn't work, you just have to recalibrate and go again. So yeah, quite possibly, much like the brain, if you've got an injury, will shut down that part of the body until it thinks it's recovered, and that's why you need to reactivate it. Your brain can also shut down elements of what you can do to stop you hurting yourself again, and you just got to get through those. I will keep going, and I will get there. I just didn't enjoy this week's run quite as much because I've lost all my knee drive. I don't have any knee drive. My body is trying to swing my leg around the side rather than letting it come up through the center, because the soleus and the hip flexor is where the injury is, and so it's using all my other muscles to try and do motions that my hip flexor would do, which is bring that knee forward as you're driving, and then my other muscles that are doing it for me, like my glutes, are stiffening up, and so I need to retrain my body in order to get past that. And so I will do what the physio says, and I will get on with it, and I will be back, and I will win some ultras one day.
Of course you will. Absolutely, you will.
Yeah, if Chrissy Wellington can come back and win an ultra, then so can I, eh? Cut from the same cloth. Cut from the same cloth, us two.
Absolutely, mate.
There you go. There you go. Shall we put some music on and forget about all of it?
Absolutely. Turn it up.
That'll probably do, won't it?
So, music. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I think you should this week. I went first last week.
Okay. So I've picked something that's really, really cool. I'm going back to Disturbed for this week. A little bit of heavy metal after a week of looking after lots of small children. So I have picked a Disturbed track from their latest album that came out this year, 2023. Their album is called Divisive, and the song is called Bad Man. But I've gone for the Cordell remix because it's really good to run to. It's kind of trancey. It's got a really, really good beat. And I think I prefer running to the remix than I do to the original. Okie dokie.
Well, that sounds quite good. You are the number 1 Disturbed super fan, so I trust your judgment on this. Yes.
And so will everybody else when they hear it in the Spotify playlist.
I'm thoroughly enjoying that playlist still. It's great fun. It's getting more and more fun as we go through the gears as well, because every time a song comes on, I remember who put it on there.
That's really cool.
An extra little dynamic to a playlist.
Yeah. Cool. What about you? What are you going to add this week, Boldy Bale?
Well, it's recovery. I'm going through the recovery-based choices based on my injury. Mm-hmm. So I have chosen a song by Brother Deej called Too Old to Die Young. From the 2010 album Folk Songs for the American Long Hair. Now this, as a guitar player myself, this has got a lovely, lovely, lovely bit of slide guitar in it. And I think it was used in the soundtrack for Django Unchained, the Quentin Tarantino film.
It's a good movie, that.
Yeah, it's a really good song, and it's all about getting to that point in life where you no longer could be accused of dying young, even if it was to end. You're just old as fuck now.
Too bold to die young. That's what you are.
Good track. Go and check them out. Go and check both of them out. Check out the whole playlist while you're there, because it's well worth your time now, and it's well over an hour's worth of music. So it will get you through any workout that you want to do.
Nice.
That's about it from us, isn't it?
I think so. I think we've covered all of the salient points for this week.
So if you want to find out more, head to www.getoutinit.events. There's loads of info on there, and you can sign up for the newsletter, download the Personal Development Friend, and book a free consultation with us to discuss your health and fitness journey and the roadmap we can put in place to help you get there. If you liked the podcast, leave a review. It's really, really useful, and you can do it on any podcatcher that you use. It is very good for the algorithmic usefulness.
Not so easy for you to say, eh?
Not so easy for me to say. Anyway, cheerio.
Bye.
Thanks for hitting the trails with us this week. We'll meet you back here next Monday for more news, more views, more nature.
All the links for our socials are in the show notes. Find and follow us on Facebook, Insta, YouTube and Twitter. You can subscribe to our newsletter from our website for all the latest updates and camp plans. You get a fun free gift when you sign up.
Leave a review on your podcast app. It's really easy and really helps us out.
And if you've got any friends who could do with getting out in it, then bring them along to next week's outdoor adventure. We'd love to have you all with us.
Catch you next week. Cheerio.